but since it's already past 11, let's start. Welcome. My name is Radek Smolec, and I'm the head of GeoPlante Doctoral School. It's my pleasure to welcome all of you at the inauguration of the 2020-2021 academic year. Warm welcome to heads of our institutes, employees, lecturers, guests, and to all PhD students, those following the old doctoral program, as well as those in the GeoPlante Doctoral School. It's now time for our inaugural lecture that will also stress the importance of interdisciplinary research. Aneta Afelt from Interdisciplinary Center for Mathematical and Computational Modeling at the Warsaw University and from the French Research Institute for Développement will talk about facing epidemiological risk in age of Anthropocene. Please.
Good morning, everyone. For me, it's a great pleasure, it's an honor to be a lecturer, the opening lecturer for the PhD doctoral school, especially if this doctoral school is such an interdisciplinary concept. Me, myself, I'm a geographer. I made my PhD in the Faculty of Geography and Regional Studies at the University of Warsaw. And my first field was hydrology. My field of interest I built last 20 years shifts me from pure hydrology to climate change, to build a concept of influence of processes which influence the water management. And with time, I noticed, I concerned that as a fact, our knowledge of the planet, of the processes we are facing with, should be more complex, should be more interdisciplinary. And that way, when I started to look at the science deeply, at the geography deeply, it was kind of intellectual discovery. How health, how environment, how processes which we are facing around are rich and interconnected. If we will see from the perspective of Earth as an environment, as a complex system, we will see that last century, maybe last 2 centuries, we are facing with process which could be called as the human dynamic change of our planet. This is the disturbance which is never before happened in the history of civilization. That period is called Anthropocene. It is a new geological epoch. It was announced by the article in Nature just a year ago, just May 2019. What is significant, it happened, please notice, a half a year before the first information about the COVID, which appeared from China, from Wuhan, that time not yet named new sickness, new infection. What are the significance that we are ready to speak about new epoch? First of all, please look at the concept of great acceleration. The great acceleration is the moment in the history of our civilization when we started to build a huge population. The dynamic of increase the number of people on the planet is never faced before in the history of humanity. We are now, I cannot tell precisely, 9 billions, 9.5 billions. At the same time, the civilization builds huge technical development and economical development, which is even faster than the growth of the population. For all those activities, for human, for the number for the human society increase, for the economical increase, for the technological increase, we need more and more space. That has consequences. one of the consequences is epidemiological safety. If we will see here, just for the short view, what happened last half a century on our planet, please notice the water consumption, which is showing on that chart. Please notice what happened with our potable water. Please consider what happened in international tourism. People started to maintain the planet, the environment they are attached to, under their needs, not necessarily under sustainable development. We are quite aggressive concerning ecosystems. We are quite aggressive concerning the way we are maintaining our activity, our life. Please consider also something which is quite funny from the first point of, for the first view, the number of McDonald's restaurants. Someone could say it's not a science. Are we sure? If we will think about kind of strategy made by this kind of concept of restaurant, the same food in around the globe, very similar way of production, huge area is needed to produce the same products around the world. The question is, does kind of farming is still natural or it's simply industrial? Do we for sure not disturb our nature just to get access to such an amount of food we are ready to produce globally? One of the concepts of that massive disturbing of the environment is the risk of in epidemiology. Why? If we will see the human population globally, we will notice easily huge megacities. The agglomeration where minimum 10 million of inhabitants are living. What is linking without that? First, the area which is feeding the city. So, industrial farming. Second, the large-scale environmental transformation, which gives the space for it to be inhabited, transformation to give the space of feeding, transformation to give the space of working. And that also is the effect, long-term effect for people migration from less urbanized to higher urbanized sectors around the world. It's enough to see China, it's enough to see India. Please notice also huge megacities in North America, South America, that gives unbalance in human society spread around the globe. Other point, ladies and gentlemen, is our aircraft transportation. Here is the map showing not really the continents, but the airports and the routes we are using, not every day, but very, very frequently. That way of transportation is shortening the geographical distance. Using this rich environment for transportation, we are ready to transport goods, to transport ourselves, but with goods and with us, we are transporting also the risk of epidemics, the risk of spread of new viruses, new bacteria, new pathogens in general. If we think that aircraft transportation is something which is most frequent for the spread of the epidemiological risk, we should also consider the sea transportation. Here is a map which is quite old, but sea transportation is quite stable, showing in May 2012 the number of ships which were circulated that day around our planet. this exchange of goods, this exchange of transportation of animals, the transportation of fruits, of vegetables, of meat, gives also a very important routes for epidemiological risk on the planet. To summarize, where is the problem? The problem is for health risk for Anthropocene is the globalization. We started to manage our planet not from the background of the certain territory, but as a whole system of interactions. If we will see on those short sentences, where is the problem? The problem is very well-developed tourist industry, is industrial food production, is global work migrations. We are all, almost every day, acting in that system. We all are a part of that system. Even me, I'm giving my talk now, my speech from south of France. We are all located in different countries, different regions. From the perspective of attending doctorate school in regular way, we would for sure be meet in Warsaw. What else? All the consequences the picture I gave to you shows that we are shortening the geographical distance. Also, by using a kind of technologies to feed the societies, to organize our everyday life, we are, this results the progressive unification. It means that places which are geographically located in huge distances started to be similar. And what is important for epidemiology, our knowledge about pathogens is very selective. We do not have the full view. We are not ready to say what is the risk, what is really known, and what is waiting to be known. Some sicknesses, some human affecting viruses like Zika, like SARS, like HIV, like dengue, all those health problems appeared firstly from the environment disturbance. Even HIV, as last year's research result shows, the HIV firstly appeared probably in Equator Africa. It was an accident that two different monkeys were under the touch, and the spread of the virus to human was also an accident. But when it happened, it was the beginning of 20th century. Some results shows that the first HIV positive human being appeared in Europe in something like 1948, 1952, 1956. But those vectors, because of not well-connected societies, because of lack of huge human mixing around the globe, those vectors were quite stable. The spread of the virus was not possible to go through. When the epidemic of HIV appeared as a global problem, that was the beginning of 80s. If we will back to the second slide, the chart of the global transportation, we will see easily that 80s was the first moment when aircraft transportation started to be something natural for long distance transportation for people because of business, because of work, because of trade. Why I put so much effort about the ecological niche disturbance? If we will try to define what is ecological niche, we can say it's an area, it's a space in a multi-dimensional space of environmental factors, which is very good for existence, sustainable expansion of some pathogen, of human being, of animal, and so on. The natural ecological niche characterize some limits, which are called ecological barriers. Those barriers gives the border, gives the critical aspects of the composition of the niche, of the dimension, spatial dimension of the niche for existence or expansions. What happened with Anthropocene? Anthropocene erased ecological barriers. What does it mean? If, for instance, for a mosquito which is transmitting, mosquitoes which are transmitting dengue or chikungunya, the certain ecosystem was located in, for example, Southeast Asia, the transportation of mosquitoes as an accident with good transportations, with other human circulation around the globe, get the opportunity to transport those mosquitoes to new environment with good ecological factors to spread at the new place. That gives the risk of the new cluster of new sickness, that also give the risk of spread of the new animals in the absolutely new ecological niche. That has the consequences. I will show you that on the second part of the lecture. Why Anthropocene again is important? Because again, disturbance of the local balance of the local ecological niche composition is an impulse for epidemiology. That is the truth for HIV, that is the truth for malaria, for avian influenza, for chikungunya, and so on. If we will ask what is health, that is a question which could be for the first moment, for the first thought, quite easy to define. But after some thinking, well, we should start to consider that it's really not well-defined state of our body, our physical and mental conditions. WHO in general defined health as a physical and mental well-being of the person. What does it mean? It means that in some extent we can decide if we feel healthy, if there is no physical objective of our imbalance. What is also important that results shows that only 5% of the diseases are genetically determined. What is the consequence for the environment? 70% of the diseases around the globe are zoonosis. Zoonosis means that the diseases are coming from the spread of pathogens from animal part of our environment to humans. This kind of interspecies transmission is most of the time accidental. It's most of the time the result of a kind of unluck. But this accident, this unluck, the chance is increasing with the disturbance of the environment. When we are making closer the distance between natural and natural and anthropogenic environment. This disturbance again and again is a result of spread of the zoonosis around the world. What is the important question concerning health and concerning present time, especially when we are facing now with COVID? Virus SARS-CoV-2, is typically zoonotic virus. If we are asking what is going on in the meaning of the present world, in the meaning of health, we should know that we have a group of already quite well recognized diseases, quite well recognized pathogens. But the problem is that our movement, our mixing around the globe, because of different reasons, made those pathogens quite well mixed around the continents. So the pathogens which were in origin from Europe now are very also well recognized in South America, in Africa, in Southeast Asia. Example, 19th century, mid of 19th century, and the epidemic of cholera in London. Ladies and gentlemen, that cholera was quite well known as a pathogen in London. It was something natural for cities in that age. But what gives the problem, the health problem, was that this certain type of the bacteria was delivered by the sailors from Singapore. And local society faced this form of the pathogen the very first time. And because the society did not get used to new form of pathogen, that was the reason why in that time the number of death cases in London was such a big in numbers. And that was, as a fact, the beginning of epidemiology, a modern epidemiology. What we know, in a huge number of diseases which are quite well known, we know some of them which are easy to be distributed around the globe. We know also more or less which of them are more conservative, more stable. For instance, the yellow fever, as far, even if the environment in the countries in Africa and the countries in Southeast Asia is quite similar in some aspects. In both cases, the vectors, mosquitoes, are quite similar in meaning of ecology. The yellow fever seems to be the sickness, the disease, which is not spreading in Southeast Asia. Many of scientists is asking why. And this is the question which is still without answer, still mysterious. We were trying to give that, to search for that answer. As far it's not easy, as far it's not clear. Maybe this is also the object for interesting PhD investigation. But what is even more important, especially now, that new diseases are appearing. And the appearance of new disease is quite complex model. Why? Because the first moment, the spread from animals to human for the new pathogen, in general, coming locally. It means that we are not ready to catch the moment to know where something new is appearing. The first moment, the first episode of transfer between animals and humans is regularly missed by science. When we are ready to know that something new appeared, when there are negative health consequences. Without negative health consequences, as a fact, without direct searching, we are not ready to say if something new appeared or not. If there are negative consequences, and if the number of patients with negative consequences is big enough to be noticed by the Health Security Service, then we know about new disease. More or less, it works like this kind of scenario. On that map, what is important? That map shows the state of art for 2004. And on that map appeared Hendera virus in Australia, avian influenza, Nipah virus, SARS already appeared 2002. On that map was not yet indicated MERS. MERS is another breathing syndrome disease coming from camels, and that disease did not spread. It stays locally in Arabic countries. And last event, end of 2019, virus SARS-CoV-2, which probably appeared in Southeast Asia, somewhere in China. It is not yet known where. But where is the question? The question is it possible to control something we expect should appear? We expect that environmental circumstances, the human pressure, the anthropo pressure, the natural ecosystem niches disturbance gives kind of signals. Can we control that? Can we search for something which is unknown? This is the case for SARS-CoV-2. And the case for something new, which maybe, probably already appeared somewhere around the world. This is the risk. This is the risk of Anthropocene. And there is another risk. There is a risk of very speedy global spread. I will show you that in a few minutes. Where is the crisis? Because everything I was speaking about shows a kind of different perspective concerning humans' health and concerning epidemiology. I started from the perspective of environment, from the perspective of human pressure, and I did not put humans itself as a central part of the approach of the investigation. Why? Because it's time to change the point of view. That is the results of the investigations, of the research, which are coming to us last 20, 25 years. When we are analyzing our health from only our self point of view, for only human point of view, we are missing the context. We are missing the scene. We are one of the actors. Then we should see that from geographical point of view, how the place, how the characteristic of the population affects health. This pushes us to concept which was quite well known in medicine in 19th century, in medicine in previous centuries, previous ages, where we were ready to consider our health as a result of well-being of the animated and inanimated environment, the dynamic of interaction between all of us. It seems that as an ecological niche, as a place where could be affected, when could be made the spread from animals to humans, but also from humans to animals should be considered as something really local and something really interdisciplinary interaction, something really complex. And here, if I can say back to some concepts of butterfly effects. In global epidemiology, I'm sorry, but it's true, the processes which are taking place locally has a global impact. Please notice what is going on now. The virus spread around our societies, but also global forced circulation of pathogens has a local effect. For instance, please consider what is going on now in Brazil. They were affected by SARS-CoV-2 not long time ago, and now they had extremely high death index because of COVID-19. Where that goes for the science? For science, we should consider the theory of the symbiosis as a starting point for analyzing our health being. It means that the concept when veterinary medicine and environment are treated as one complex system, which is called One Health. In that approach, please notice where we are. We are linking epidemiology, public health, geophysics, biology, ecology, epizootiology, food safety, humanosis, as well as zoonosis, so interdirective viruses, pathogen spread, geography, big data, IT. That is a new perspective for health, for risk health knowledge. This is a new perspective for global point of view for the health security, public health system. If we will see that system from more detailed point of view, we should start from the biophysical model of human health made by Engel in 1978. He considered that our well-being, our biopsychosocial model comes from molecules to person, to family, community, global society level. On each level, there are interactions between molecules, interaction between people, interaction inside community and between communities. The same system could be given to two other silos: human, environmental, and animals. From that point of view, we have two systems: vertical system and horizontal system. If we are speaking about system, it means that on each level, on each horizon, it is possible to analyze interaction. If we are speaking about interactions, all the interactions should be defined by space and by time. From that point of view, we can see One Health approach as complex investigations, searching for good, for health well-being, and also searching for sustainable development, which could preserve, protect us against high risk of transmission inside the ecological niche, which could be a problem for our health. So to summarize, One Health is, as a fact, system interaction. So we can define place, we can define point, we can define time, and from that perspective, we can do analysis for socio-ecological niche, for phylogeography, from ecology of the gene. All those approaches let us to better manage, to build a strategy to preserve the society against circumstances as we are facing now with COVID-19. Present day perspective. If Wuhan surprised the scientists, I'm sorry, no. To us, to people researchers who are dealing with environmental risk, it was not surprising. Surprise rather came from the time, the dynamic of spread, but about that in a few minutes. What happened exactly in Wuhan? This map presents one of the first phase of the COVID-19 spread in China. It was the slide I prepared for my habilitation seminar given in the Polish Academy of Science in the Institute of Geography and Spatial Planning, 5th of February. That time we faced 24,000 cases, mainly in China. Just few cases appeared around the world, and it was a beginning of the troubles. At that moment, we believed, we hoped that nothing really massive could happen, which was quite naive from nowadays perspective. But what happened in China? China has several high density populated cities, agglomerations. For those agglomerations is needed long distance food supply. And what was inconvenient that the spread of the new disease started around Chinese New Year, when families in China would like to celebrate together. So it was a huge level of people mixing, traveling, short distance, long distance, food transportation. Wuhan is very well connected by the air with other parts of the world because of scientific center, because of industrial center, because of trade, simply. What happened after? So when they notice what is going on, huge, very complex activities and strategy was applied. They built rapidly hospital. They rapidly engaged the public health control. They limited people's mixing, people's activity. If that helped, no, and again, no. Here is a map. It was the first slide was beginning of February. Here are the data from the end of May. Please look at the map. Virus SARS-CoV-2 spread around the globe. That was really rapid pace. Let's remind, China officially gave the info to WHO end of December 19. February, already in few countries far located from Wuhan and from China were discovered few first cases. End of May, 5 million people after contact with SARS-CoV-2 and officially detected as COVID-19 positive. How it is now? The data are for October the 10th. Here is one of the most disturbing charts, the COVID-19 cases of death. More than 200,000 deaths in United States. We are now facing in Poland 3,000 deaths. That rate comparing to other countries like France, like Great Britain, seems to be small, but it is still alive. And what we are facing now in Poland is a rapid decrease of the number of confirmed cases. We are facing with rapid increasing number of person who needs health care help. What will happen in the future? No one really is ready to give a scenario because circumstances are not really suitable, for instance, from a mental point of view. But what we know already and what is not really a new or mysterious knowledge, consider zoonosis, consider spread of the viruses like SARS-CoV-2. First of all, there is quite well-known model of disease spread, which is called the spillover model. How it works? First of all, some new version of virus is appearing at the society of animals. That virus, because of contact between animals, because of diet, because of physiology, because of accidental contacts, could spread to different kind of animals, could spread inside the society of animals, and in some point regularly as a risk, as an accident, it could spread to humans. If that spread is successful and the new host, human host for the new pathogen, overreacting with health symptoms, it means that the new pathogen is will give some sickness effects. If yes, now the question is, what is the way to spread of the new pathogen between people? The spread could be by food, could be by our activity, different kind of activity, could be by our touch. It depends of the type of the virus. Now, when the spread is successful, we are facing the third step of the spillover. So the local ecosystem niche, the human which are inside and are in touch, started to be the vectors. So persons who could give the pathogen to another members of the society. This was the third step was then the moment when the disease was discovered in Wuhan. From the step number 2 to step number 3 could appear very, it's not well-defined time, I could say. Then the fourth step is the spread of the new pathogen in the region, in the continent, and between continents. On that level, it is highly expected some medical treatment, like vaccination, like medical drugs, who could stop the transmission or who could preserve us against the transmission. In general, when the virus is already at the human society, it's really difficult to totally block the presence of the virus. It stays with community for the future. That probably will be the way with coronavirus. About coronavirus itself, that group of viruses is really big, and those viruses are with life on the planet is quite long. Those viruses are quite active and easy to spread. Most of the time for mammals, typical are alpha and beta coronaviruses. For birds, typical are gamma coronaviruses. Bats, as a specific mammals, are ready to host alpha, beta, and gamma coronaviruses. And that circulation also includes human. Please, let's see. What is the way to transmit the coronaviruses? For now, it's recognized 7 coronaviruses which are appeared to humans. The SARS-CoV-2 is the youngest one, but please notice the natural host most of the time are bats. The intermediate host could be really different animals, and here is also only the kind of proposal, and human host is the last one. But some results from West Europe shows that for SARS-CoV-2, the spread from human are possible also to animals. So it's a kind of circulation which takes space and time around the species. What is important, some coronaviruses are not really gives any huge health troubles, like HCoV-2 NL63. That coronavirus is quite common, and it's the symptoms of it is just a flu, not really severe. Some of them, as MERS, some of them like SARS, they are quite severe. For SARS-CoV-2, we are now learning how to cope with the virus and what are the health results to carrying the virus. How it happened that the virus itself spread and what we could do to stop this kind of risk. First of all, we can divide the process onto 5 steps, which are quite similar to the spillover model, but more detailed. First part is the sylvanic phase. So that is the natural environment and circulation of the virus, of the pathogen in natural environment. From the moment when there is a mixing between natural environment and the human-made environment, so social-ecological niche, the risk of spillover is increasing. If accident happen and has health consequences, then we are going to latency phase. That level is not possible to control. The spread of the virus is linked with local ecosystem, with region when the transmission happen. And because of small number of people who are carrying the virus, they but have the clear symptoms, the bad health consequences could not be on that level yet recognized by the health system. For that, we need the level of Wuhan, so amplification phase. When some vectors from latency, from local ecological niche are delivering the virus, the pathogen, to a huge society, which are very dynamic. So, which are mixing each other, which are in many contacts, in school, in work, at the public space. That way, we can have certain critical number of people with severe symptoms, and that gives a chance to medical service to discover that something new appeared and to act for searching solutions. From Wuhan, we spread epidemic over the globe. We spread epidemic this time mostly by air transportation, and we should face with that consequence. What is important that, please look, the spread of the SARS-CoV-2 from 3rd to 4th step took only 6 months. That is the global record. That never happened before. And this is the global society responsibility. I'm sorry to say that, but we could not effectively stop the transmission. This is the consequence of shortening geographical distance. Again, pandemic phase, please notice that January, February. What we know before. Before, I was a part of the team of researchers from France, from US, from Cambodia, Laos, from Vietnam, from Indonesia. We built a project to investigate the coronaviruses in bats. Especially, it was a project for Indonesia and Laos, where it was for Laos and Cambodia, when it was the first country-scale research to recognize the circulation of coronaviruses in bats. Bats were chosen as a primary vector, and also because in those countries, Laos and Cambodia, bats are a part of the diet. So the risk of transmission is high, and that risk is even higher because of some environmental facts I can show you in a while. Where are the fields of the risks? First of all, tourism. Ladies and gentlemen, those pictures are mine. I was facing that spectacle of evening migration of fruit bats to the village. I don't know how many hundreds of bats were here. That was impressive, but that is the face. That is a facing of the risk of transmission by some natural substances. Economy. Those countries, Southeast Asia countries, are countries under the development. So bats farm are considered as a source of economical support because of guano deforestation. I will show you a maps which gives that those maps when this moment I made it, that was shocking how fast is deforestation in Southeast Asia, in Africa, in South America. Another space, agriculture, food preparing, food circulation. Here are the results. We investigated again Cambodia and Laos, country scale research. Some hotspots were identified to collect the bats. Altogether, we collected the bats which are the objective of food for local societies as the most risk chain for the possible spread of the coronaviruses. So we made investigation for two viruses, the coronavirus and the astrovirus, and the results shows both viruses. What we noticed? We noticed a shift of bats from natural to human-made environment. Bats which were linked to natural environment started to move to human societies using human houses, using animal shelters, started to be an element at the chain of the virus local transmission. What gives us this kind of thinking, this kind of not really a discovery, but proof of that discovery. Each time we faced in analysis the forest fragmentation by deforestation, the forest fragmentation by the local transportation system, the increasing settlement at the environment, we automatically noticed that the number of bats which are infected increasing. After that, I made the map of deforestation for 13 years for Southeast Asia region. Please notice what is going on in that region. For instance, here is the better scale view for Cambodia. In that country, in 30 years, they lost 60% of the forest. Here is Java, here is Sumatra. Please, the black dots are the regions, the places where at 2000 was a forest cover, and 2013 they dramatically changed the land use. Most of the time for farming, but also for to develop urbanized area. What is the link of that picture with coronaviruses? Here it is. Please look carefully. Here are identified in literature for the same period, 2000 to 2013, the bats collected and positive for alpha and beta coronaviruses. Most of the time, when I located the source of the data, the location was linked with rapid deforestation last 20 years. What is important? There is visible an equilibrium in number of bats, number of results showing the coronavirus transmission, coronavirus linked with bats. It's not that in Indonesia there is no bats which are corona positive. It means that in certain countries there are not enough research projects, not enough results to have a proper view of the problem. Concerning China, when in China the number of identified coronaviruses are given, please notice that probably in all other territories, we should expect something similar. Please comment the risk to yourself. Some summary. But in general, it comes also with wild animals are pushed out of their natural habitats, and they use human-made conditions just to survive, just to build a new equilibrium. The ecological niches of bats, natural, were quite isolated from species to species. Now, at the human-made conditions, species are close together. It means that interspecies virus transmission could appear also. For now, there are not too many evidence that it is possible, but some results from Spain shows that yes, if there is a colony of different species of bats, the transmission of viruses of pathogen is possible. That builds the risk. The hazards, the transmission to human is possible by direct transmission, bat to human, but also indirect transmission using wild animals or domestic animals. And this invasion, this shortening the geographical distance between natural and human-made environment gives the risks. Some critic about data. We should be always critical concerning the data we are facing. You are the first year just opening your fantastic adventure of being researcher, doing a PhD investigations. I'm few steps further, but still have a lot of joy to do research. And I always keep in my mind that results which are given could be considered as not being under the faith, but being under the critical analysis. It is true that around the world are appearing plenty of publications about bats and pathogen transmissions by those animals. Fantastic animals, by the way. But please look what is going on. The equilibrium of data really does not exist. The number of research coming from each country is not well balanced. We have no clear view picture. Please look the unequilibrium in distribution of the virus families. Here we also have no well balanced picture. So we really should be careful to searching for some general ideas, because for that we simply need more research. We need more data. What else? Some summaries of the part of the bats, and again reminder that the risk areas are well defined, that the consequences are also well defined, especially well defined concerning COVID-19. But what after SARS-CoV-2? This is SARS-CoV-2. This is a question we should also ask by ourselves, ask of the scientific community, if that is the first or that is the last. I'm afraid that waiting room is overcrowded and other pathogens are waiting. I would not like to say waiting, but they are, and we should think about the risk coming from that side also. I was concentrated as far on bats and of transmission from that direction, but this is not the only point if you are speaking about environment quality, sustainability, and possible epidemiological risk. Here is, I'm sorry for the scale, but it's quite complex picture showing the special distribution of positive cases of Japanese encephalitis in human and in animals. As a equilibrium of one health perspective, we should notice that in case of Japanese encephalitis, the circulation of the pathogen is fully include animals and humans. This disease gives quite severe consequences, intellectual consequences, physical consequences that put a part of the society which facing with that disease as not fully attending the social life as a consequence of post-inflammation symptoms. Why I show that picture? Here on the left part, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so 10 mosquito species discovered and confirmed as seropositive for the virus. So they are vectors. That article was published in 2018. Since 2018, a colleague who is an entomologist and works in the Indonesian Ministry of Health discovered four more species which are also vectors. So the dynamic of new knowledge is first big, and the new knowledge gives absolutely new perspective. The new perspective to see the environment, how to manage, how to build a strategy for sustainable development, to not increase the risk, to take care of health of the social-ecological niche, to not build the circumstances which could let spread the pathogen. If that is not enough, here is a perspective which is a lot more European. To say a few more words about the previous slide. Japanese encephalitis in human is a local Southeast Asia disease, but the tourists which are visiting that region are also a vector of that sickness to other regions. So if in some region human, one of us, which is a vector of Japanese encephalitis, will face with good ecosystem quality where could be unknown vector, means family, a species of mosquitoes, we could spread that in the new geographical area. Perspective which is closer to Europe. Here we investigated chikungunya and dengue at the same time in positive patients, and we were searching for mosquitoes at the environment where come from the patients. And what we discovered? We discovered that two species of mosquitoes, Aedes aegypti and Aedes albopictus, are vectors which are quite well spread around the world. And what is more important, except that those vectors are transmitting dengue, chikungunya, those vectors, those mosquitoes are well, how to say that? The mosquitoes we discovered in Vietnam has their family members in Australia, in Martinique, in Brazil, Cambodia, Colombia, in Romania, in Europe. It means that the risk of spread of those diseases, again, dengue, chikungunya, is quite high. What is important, in south of France, because we had those vectors, we have those vectors as a part of the environment. Those vectors, those mosquitoes were transmitted to South France. We have first local cases of chikungunya. So the process is accelerating. To summarize, our environment is a reservoir of pathogens, both animals and humans. The circulation system is a part of a natural biological system. The epidemiological contact is something we are facing, especially under the condition of disturbing of natural environment. So we need to start to think how to manage the natural ecosystem, which is now under the huge human pressure, which is no more as a fact natural ecosystem, but rather social ecosystem. We need to find a way how to propose the strategy of the sustainable development to not accelerate the risk of the new diseases, to stop, to block the chain at the primal ecosystem niche. For that, we need to understand the processes, we need interdisciplinary approach, and we need to monitor the environment. But that monitoring must be done globally. Some questions for the future. What are the problems we should remember, we should face with? First of all, climate change is already disturbing local ecosystems. That equilibrium is now disturbed, and time will give a new equilibrium. The question, what would be the impact for epidemiology? It's obvious that will be, but there are as far not good models which could tell the direct answer what would be really the future for epidemiology. It's obvious that the human migration, that the in general change of the ecosystem complexity will have an impact in epidemiology. What is also important, that it looks like from point of view of geographer, I'm a geographer, one of the solutions to stop, to feel more secure is the strategy to rebuild the geographical distance. It means that we should start to think to slow down a bit, to not move so fast, maybe to again start to think about the social-ecological niche as something local, as something significant for regional circumstances, as meaning of climate, meaning of soil, meaning of some local distribution of goods. That could break the chain of the epidemiological risk for sure. For two of us who would like to read another perspective of COVID, I could recommend the article we published recently with my colleague from Brazil, Carlos Saito, with my colleague from my lab research in Montpellier, Anne-Elisabeth Lack, and myself. It's a perspective of vulnerability, uncertainty, and social environmental challenges for the future concerning what we are now facing in different societies concerning COVID. And to all of us who are in Poland and around the globe, I would like to recommend you our Polish Academy of Science COVID ThinkTank report, Understanding COVID. I hope that lecture, written, given by simple language which should be well recognized by the society, could help you to manage our everyday activity in a safe way, and just to not stop our activities, but to adapt to the new circumstances. Thank you so much. I'm sorry for my English, if was any problems. I hope it was an interesting lecture for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It was really interesting lecture. It's time for questions. If you want to ask a question, it's best if you virtually raise your hand. In Zoom, you just open the participants window, and at the bottom you can click raise a hand. You can also ask questions via chat window. Okay, I start to see questions. Bożena Czerny was first, please.
Well, I'm not sure if we can easily do anything about this epidemiological problems, because as soon as we started to live in cities, which happens in the medieval times and even earlier, I think we faced this epidemics. So on the one hand, well, moving to internet entirely might be a kind of a solution, but that is psychologically difficult because we got used to cities, right? And now we should quit cities. What do you think?
May I answer, Radek?
Yes.
Yes, yes, of course.
Results shows something really interesting. When we are staying in our socio-ecological niche as a kind of stable area, stable space of activity, and our goods delivery is coming mostly from our surrounding, from our social ecosystem, socio-ecological niche, it looks like the circulation of the pathogen is ready to get some kind of equilibrium. The problem is facing, as shows history, when we are spreading the pathogen from niche to niche. So, for instance, like it happened in the mid of 19th century in London, when the cholera transmitted from Singapore gave so many deaths in London. So a kind of equilibrium is possible. Of course, we cannot avoid everything. That would be impossible. And that would make life impossible. But maybe it's time to think how to back to this equilibrium. Without that, we will face circumstances for as we have for SARS-CoV-2. Each time, easily transmitted pathogen will appear. At the past, what is also important, at the past, because it is also archaeoepidemiology. It's also a very interesting part of knowledge. The waves of the diseases were always present at the history of humanity. The problem, the difference with past and now is the time slot. At the past, it was, let's say, long time before two peaks. Now we have 6 months, and the whole globe is affected.
Okay, thank you. Now, Wiesław Macek.
Yes, thank you very much, Aneta, for exciting lecture. This is extremely important to cope, to give our contribution to coping with this pandemic, and especially I put it, my request, the link on a chart to support, to declare COVID-19 vaccine as a common good. It was issued in May 1st. This year we promoted, we asked also Nobel Prize Yunus from Bangladesh to sign it also. And hopefully the problem is that this is the only solution to cope with this pandemic on a long scale. And it is a problem that this medicine should be available for everybody in the world, and it will be prepared under the international control along the some ethical law of regulation. And in this letter we issued several months ago, we predicted that the absolute record for preparing this COVID vaccine will be 1.5 years. I recently listened that we expect that the next year, in autumn next year, will be probably ready. What do you think about this? Whether we would be able to overcome, to cope with on a global level? Because I think that this dramatic situation requires solidarity, not only on a particular national level, but on the very global level. And
Yes,
of course,
yes.
our question is what we scientists can do with this. You do something good. Yes. And I like to encourage everybody to contribute.
Thank you for the question. We have 3 ways to cope with pandemic. First way, as long as we have no vaccination and no really efficient therapy, we should keep going with known from hundreds of years program. Keep your nose and mouth covered by the mask. Keep distance and keep disinfect, clean your hands. I know it's for some societies, this is hard to accept this kind of freedom decreasing. For some societies, it's everyday life, like in Singapore. For vaccination, I really look for effective vaccination. That virus is quite stable from point of view of the construction, point of view of the evolution. But because of the consequences of the sickness appears in neurological system, in lung problems, with skin problems, I hope that we will have enough time to test the vaccination before we will go through as a gift for the society. So that needs time. And another question which appears, and this is independent discussion, already started globally, because different societies are expecting to be given by the vaccination. We are 9, let's say, billions of people. How to manage, what should be a strategy to share the safety, because the vaccine will be a safety. How to share that? Also, very important point which appears from that discussion and is also given at one of the recent publications is that some societies around the world, especially in Africa, seems to be better immunopreserved against COVID. That is interesting. Here is the space for another research. I hope I answer. I'm sorry that I was not very precise, but ethically, the vaccination program, I'm afraid we will face not easy discussion, very complex discussion globally.
Okay, thank you. I don't see raised hands, but there are many questions and on chat. So let me start with this. The first one I see is from Paweł Jujeczko. What are the concepts of rebuilding geographical distance that would be possible to apply?
I think it to take a lesson from the past. It seems that for kind of diseases, especially zoonotic and especially like COVID-19, where the time slot is important, looks like to slow down our interconnectivity, our long distance transportation, our movement could help. As we know from literature, the time before first symptoms for COVID is between 1 to 14, some cases 19 days. Some of us are asymptomatic. The time to be fully cured after the disease is also quite long. So if we would break the chain for, let's say, 2 weeks, that probably will effectively slow down the circulation of pathogens, which are this kind of pathogens, of course. But for instance, for mosquitoes, to rebuild the geographical distance is, for instance, to make a control at the hotspots. Hotspots are the place where is a accumulation of the risk to appear, for instance, transportation with goods to the new place. We are now facing in Europe a new invasion of new mosquitoes, which were transported with ships. Control on that point should help us to control better our ecosystem.
Thank you. Another question from a chat window from Wojtek Helwing. Do you think that globally forbidding live animal markets and by imposing strict regulation for worldwide animal breeding, like we have in the European Union, would help a lot here? Most of recent aggressive viral-based epidemic and pandemic were strains that jumped from animals: swine flu, bird flu, camel flu. So that's the question from Wojtek.
Yes, I absolutely agree that we need more. We need a strategy which includes a good regulation for animals and food coming from animals. I would say control. What is the story after that? For instance, one of the epidemic of dengue in South Vietnam was an effect of illegal transportation of chickens from Cambodia. So here is really really a lot to do. Here is really a weak point for the global circulation. But other hand, please look that the fully industrial way of keeping meat production, keeping animals production is also under the risk.
Thank you. And next question is from Tilak Pavar. Do you really feel that controlling the growing intercontinental exchange is possible in future after growing ease of transport? And should a drop in population affect the cause positively?
I hope it's possible. Why it's hope? First, the number of itineraries which were between continents by avian transportation was out of control. I remember I was on the way to Poland end of February to give an open seminar about coronaviruses before was the first patient in Poland. It was 25th, 24th of February. And I landed from Montpellier at the Charles de Gaulle airport. And I saw the very first time in my life at the de Gaulle were 3 seats. But those 3 seats was a cordon around people from Asia. That was absolutely out of any ethics. But that was so human being fear. It's I cannot answer you directly saying yes. I can answer you that we should do everything possible, because that way we should rebuild the geographical distance.
Okay, thank you. Another question from Claudia Kowalczyk. At the beginning of the pandemic, there were two theories on its origin, eaten bat or a lab leak accident. Has it been confirmed that the virus was the result of Wuhan meat market? I have not seen any info in media.
Let me please back to one of the slides, because in public space, we missed, not only in Poland, but globally, a kind of education, which gives knowledge, understanding, and a kind of rational behavior. Please look at this sylvatic phase. The exchange between species, the distribution of the pathogen between species is something natural, especially at the natural ecosystem, so in kind of intact areas. And those intact areas are really not well recognized. We have limited knowledge about that. What we know, when we can be sure what is going on, is here, is Wuhan. So the virus itself does not come from Wuhan, does not come from the market. Virus itself is coming from sylvatic phase. So some time ago, and like in storytelling, some time ago, because now it's not possible to give the answer when. A week ago, months ago, year ago, we really don't know. That is not sure. Some time ago at the past, it was interspecies transmission of the virus, which well adapted to our immune system and gives the reaction of our body, which appears as COVID-19 sickness. On that phase, on the first level, the first step, I would say, it's very difficult to control. On that step, it's a primal social-ecological niche. On that step, we need a strategy for sustainable development. If that step would be fine, we would less frequently move to the right to the pandemic. So again, Wuhan is not the source. Source is somewhere else, out of Wuhan, maybe close to Wuhan, maybe far away from Wuhan. Important is that from latency phase, some people, some vectors, as we are saying, transported the virus to the society in Wuhan. And here appeared enough big number of cases which were severe to let the health system notice that something new appeared. It's like this. I'm sorry, it's very simple, but at the same time, it's quite complex.
Thank you. I see one more question in chat window from Iftikhar Ahmad. I wanted to ask about population. If you can somehow stabilize our population, we can have less interaction with wild animals, epidemics. Do you think it is the right approach? So this is a similar question, but maybe you want to comment on that.
It's obvious that increasing number of humans in our limited environment gives pressure on the natural ecosystems. As a fact, if you will see the map given here, please look on the map. Southeast Asia, the red and yellow spots. The yellow spots are the natural intact forest areas, where the human pressure is not yet significant. Primary, those kind of areas were dominated. Now, to be honest, it's less and less possible because we need a space for our activity. How to limit that? results from China for malaria control, I attend with my colleagues from Chinese CDC, shows that if we are ready to maintain a good strategy to not make huge disturbance in short time, it gives a chance that the evolution of the land cover could let animals follow the changes. That way, the risk is lower and easier to control.
Okay, thank you. I think there are some comments in chat window, but I think we don't have more questions here. Maybe someone wants to ask a question. Please raise your hand. But if not, thank you very much.
There is one.
Oh, sorry.
There is one more question.
In chat window? Oh, yes. From Gonzalo Rojas, do you think that change the human diet to a planet-based one and also controlling the industrialization of the meat market and animal products production could have a positive impact on the control of this kind of pandemics?
Yes, answer is yes, in general. But again, there are also some answers which could be maybe, which could be probably. In general, when I started to travel to Southeast Asia because of research reasons, I saw something really interesting. Local markets and local social ecosystems, even if the level of our European point of sanitation was quite unexpected, I was never ever sick. I never ever had any disturbance of my body. But when we are facing a mixture of natural food, industrial foods, we are mixing people from different ecosystems, then we build the troubles. It looks like this. I would say again the answer is to think regionally and to be more attached to the region in our activity, in our supply service, than to necessarily have an avoca on our table.
Thank you. I'm looking once again at the chat window. And for the moment, I think that's it. So thank you very much once again for this very interesting lecture. I'm sure we all enjoyed it a lot. We can clap virtually.
In any case, we can give my email address and I can try to answer that way also.
Sure. So if someone have questions, you can contact me and I will pass the question to Aneta. So thank you very much. That was really very nice lecture and lots of useful information.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes,
thank you.
Again.
With pleasure.
So it was a pleasure to host you for this inaugural lecture. I wish you all the best, a very fruitful and successful new academic year. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.